going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go.
I have an amazing individual with me. No, not my children in the background whose voices you probably hear, but my guest, who is courtesy of a friend of mine who I also met through another friend. Her name is Caitlin. Caitlin Ken. I recently had her on the show, and I met her through a good buddy of mine, Jose Pichardo. So it's just a gift that keeps on giving, because now I have an opportunity to interview someone who I learned is a fan of the show. And so I'm a little nervous because I don't know if I can live up to her expectations. But nonetheless, our guest is an author. She's also someone who practices in witchcraft, and she is also a writing mentor. I'll let her go deep down and heavy into what she does. But ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mrs. Johnnie Mazzocco. What's going on?
Hey, Osiris, thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Hey, well, thank you, Johnny, for coming on board and very much appreciate your time. Now, I know in the intro I had mentioned a few things, but I want to first ask about how has your life been overall since you decided to dive full-fledged into writing and making that almost treating it like its own profession?
Uh, well, I feel like I've done that at different junctures in my life.
Hmm.
And, I've been writing since I was a kid. And then I always kind of wrote on the side and treated it like a luxury, which now my rant with my clients and students is we cannot treat writing fiction as a luxury. It's a necessity. And it wasn't until I retired from teaching that I finally felt like I had the time. And I guess, I don't know, my life just feels a lot more balanced now and meaningful. And I was going to say I'm not quite as cranky as I used to be, but I don't know if that's true. I'm kind of being a super intuitive person. I think we see a lot of things in the world. And so I always tell people I'm probably the crankiest positive person you're ever going to meet. But yeah, just knowing that I am privileging my own writing practice and my writing life just feels really good. Like I always also tell my students and clients that when we honor that impulse to write, I think it's an act of self-love. And that's what it feels like to me when I do it.
One of the things that I really enjoy much when it comes to writing, especially creative writing, is having that creative outlook that gets you and separates you from what most deem to be the real world. And it's a lovely activity to partake in, especially if that's a profession. Now you had mentioned you've been writing since you were a child, and I would imagine the development of your art and your artistry has certainly evolved over the years. But you had mentioned before the recording that I know that you practice in witchcraft, and much of what you do in witchcraft has translated into your writing. So let's talk a bit about that. Now, you also do fiction. So how much of what you do with your witchcraft and in that practice in comparison to your writing, how does the two blend?
Yeah. So first I will say this about my practice, about the witchcraft. I feel like it's really getting a lot of traction these days, which I think is a good thing, and I'm excited about it. A lot of people ask me, what kind of witch are you? Like, are you a kitchen witch, a garden witch? And I don't really know how to answer that because I don't know. I just am one. And I've been learning more recently so I have Italian ancestry, and I grew up next door to my Italian grandpa who had been a farmer before I was born, and he loved working with the earth. And so I worked alongside him when I was a little girl. He had this giant garden behind his garage. And I believe now, my grandpa passed like 40 some years ago, but I believe that he was a witch. Um, and I've been learning about a particular kind of witchcraft called stragatia, and it's Italian witchcraft. And it's more of a modern term, but it's focused on lineages. And so I feel like I was born into it and didn't realize this until I was an adult. So all of that is to say that nature and the natural world in a number of ways, and that translates in my personal life into cooking. And both of those things show up in my fiction a lot, in my own fiction. I love to write about descriptions about food, and my novel is set in the woods, in the Rocky Mountains, and it's about a woman who learns to find her own intuitive kind of magical self. And she uses
Mhm.
woods and a garden to do that. And so it all kind of weaves together subconsciously for me. Yeah, the way my witchcraft then kind of enters in when I work with other people, with clients and students. I think it's more just I have a very high and sharp intuition.
Yeah.
And I also, and I'm claircognizant, so I just kind of know things sometimes. And so someone can give me an idea for a story, and in my mind, I kind of just I see things in webs. And so I can see how all the things connect together. And so I can
Yeah.
very quickly help people figure out how to begin to structure a novel.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'm also very, very good, and I think this is also my intuition, and part of my witchcraft is that I can see into people very easily. And so I'm very, very good at character development. And
Yeah.
so I help people with that.
Wow.
I'm
That
a,
is.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. I was going to say I am a student of the human condition. Like I'm
Mhm.
fascinated by humans and human behavior and human dramas. So, yeah.
That is impressive. And it is because hearing you speak is reminding me of that psychic that I spoke with, right? About you just sometimes it's just naturally gifted to you. You're just born with those abilities to be able to just have a different eye or a different look onto the world. Now, when it comes to you being able to have your read on people, does that translate even through, like, for example, through us right now with it being virtual? Do you get good readings off of people in that manner, or does it necessarily have to be specifically, I have to see them in person in order for that to be conveyed?
It's always tricky when someone asks me this question. I no, I can I think I just pick up on things viscerally from talking to people. So I think whether it's in person, definitely in person is more powerful. Like parties are
Hmm.
hard for me because I feel everybody's everything. Um, and I know things about people, not details about their lives, but I get this sensorial kind of visceral feeling. And so I feel their feelings, if that makes sense. And then that
No, it
somehow
does.
creates a kind of story for me. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but yeah.
No, no, it aligns as well. It certainly aligns. But I agree with you. Definitely talking to people in person, face to face, making eye contact, and getting a good read and good vibe on them. Certainly, I believe to be more impactful. So the reason why I'm asking you these questions is not specifically to say, hey, this is this I want to get into witchcraft, but it's more like in the development, because when people are making stories, especially fiction based stories, a lot of what they experience in reality is transmitted into their characters or into the story. And so do you take elements of people that you meet in person, or even virtually, your experiences through witchcraft, and you throw them into characters, or do you keep those entities separate?
Um, Yes, I do, but not always on purpose. Um, I teach this process called, I didn't make this up, but I teach this process called amalgamation, where we take our imaginations and real life stories and conflate them. And I do this subconsciously. Like I've created characters, and then it can even be 2 years later, I realize, oh man, that character is a conflation of these two people that I know in real life. And so that does happen. I don't do it on purpose always, but if there is a little nugget from my life that I think, oh, this would really serve as a great metaphor for this situation in a story, or if it aligns with the character, then I might use it. But I will tell you one question that I really don't like getting if I read in public. If someone asks me, is this autobiographical? Um, and I learned a response for that from one of my professors when I was in grad school. And the response is this: will knowing that help you take in the work any better? Um, and my feeling is, if I wanted to write memoir or autobiography, that's what I would be doing. And I write fiction for a number of reasons. And I just think asking a fiction writer if their work is autobiographical takes the focus away from the work, where it should be, in my opinion, and onto the person. And so, yeah, I do use some things from my life, but my work absolutely is fiction. And I don't doubt that people who know me might see, oh, I recognize this or that. But of course, I make a lot of things up, and so it can't be anything but fiction.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think that's the beauty in fiction based stories is the idea of you can pull elements from whomever or wherever, and you can combine it into this story or this character or these characters and allow that story to be what is told. I've always learned that there's truth in fiction, and so or there's truth in a lie within the fiction. And I think there's a lot of truth there to it. But
Yes.
now I want to pivot a little bit because I know that you have a book that you've written that is, fingers crossed, coming out within the year. But you want to talk a little bit about that book right now, or is that something you want to save for the future?
No, I'm happy to talk about it. Finally, my first novel. I've known since I was probably 5 years old, because I was an avid reader, very early on in my life. And I just knew I wanted to write novels. I didn't know the word novelist, but my dream was to write books, fictional stories, and to be a teacher. And I did the teacher part for a long time and put a lot of myself into that. And so, no, now that I have my first novel coming out, yeah, fingers crossed, first of the year in 2026, um, I just feel, there are times in life where I think we turn a corner of sorts and become more fully who we are. And I feel like that's what finishing this novel, and now I ran a Kickstarter campaign. And like the first level of it was funded, so that was great. And that allowed me to send the novel off to an editor and proofreader. So that's where it is right now. And it's called Miranda's Garden. And this came out of, I am sure, because, I lived next door to my Italian grandpa. And like I was saying earlier, just all that time that I spent with him in his garden, working with the earth, it's just kind of part of me. And so I ended up writing a whole novel around this concept of garden as a metaphor for death and rebirth of the spirit, basically. And so Miranda's Garden is a story about a 30-year-old Miranda who goes to the Colorado Rockies with her classical composer husband, Len, who is having a serious case of writer's block. He has this important commission he has to finish. And they move there with the hope that this will unblock him and solve some other problems that they've had. And so they move there into this beautiful place, and it's actually, the cabin itself is run down. And so the cabin also becomes a metaphor for kind of a revamping of the self. Um, and of course, things don't go as planned. And so, um, yeah, Miranda is faced with a kind of heartbreak, I will say, and sets her off on this whole other path to really fully become who she is. And the tagline is a magical moon-soaked novel of grief, growth, and the gardens we carry inside us. And so it sounds like a nice, lovely little story, but there are parts of it that are lovely, but it's very dark, a very dark story also. And I really work to balance the light and dark because it is about the resilience of the human spirit. And I just find that fascinating how the things people can endure in life and remain upright. And it gets me choked up, to be honest. Um, I'm fascinated by human beings and the way they overcome. And so, I didn't expect to do that. Dang it. um, but that's what the story is about. And, in my own life, I always say nature is my church. And so that's how I use the natural world in this story. It becomes part of the main character's spiritual practice.
That's moving. It's very much a moving speech that you had. Not even a speech, just the words that you said about it. Human beings we are all interesting people, and I think depending on the tax bracket and where people live, and some people can get ostracized and some others get revered and others are loved. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. I remember seeing this video somewhere on YouTube, but I don't know when I saw this, but this was hearing you say that reminded me about this guy. He was a homeless man. And I think he was unfortunately, he's no longer alive. And I think I don't know what it had to do with, but I know he's no longer alive. And they were calling him a bum and calling him certain things, and then he just broke down. He said, like, I'm not a bum, I'm a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me think really hard about, at the end of it all, we are all still people and with hearts and plenty to give. And when others start to treat people poorly, I don't know, that's just a reflection of who they are. But I
Yeah.
believe that everyone deserves some sort of, well, not everybody, most people deserve compassion and some sort of love and heartfelt relationships that they may be longing for that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love what you had to say in regards to just the nature being your church, because to me, that is where I get a lot of my ideas is from nature walks, going outside, smelling the fresh air. I know where you reside at, an area you reside in. Mine is quite similar in terms of its habitat and what's around the areas in which we both live in. And not everyone's prone to that environment. And with that, I say that it's always good to try to find a way
Yeah.
to maybe even imagine those areas in which can bring you solitude. But I'll pivot really quick because you're getting me to go deep too. and and I want to talk about you being a writing coach or writing mentor. Sorry, a writing mentor
Mhm.
for people. Now, what exactly does this entail? Are you focused on the teenagers, young adults, older adults, or a mix of all in between? What does that look like for you?
Well, first and foremost, I love to mentor people in fiction writing. And so, honestly, I'll work with anybody of any age who really sincerely wants to write fiction. And, I was saying earlier, like, a lot of times people view fiction writing as this fun little frivolous side thing that people do when they have time. And I think it is far more important than that. I think it's absolutely essential. I think stories are essential to our existence, and we're just wired for it. We need stories like we need air and water and sleep and food. And um, so, first, anybody who deeply committed to writing fiction and understands, like you were saying earlier, the truth that gets told in the so called live fiction. I think is really profound. And that's why I prefer it to memoir, because I can write about my life, but it's from my own limited perspective. And when I get inside characters, I can write from a multitude of perspectives. So I love working with people who grasp that and really embrace it. And I really like working with beginning and intermediate writers. Uh, and I do that in a number of ways. It might be like a full day strategy session to kind of create a structure for the novel, like I was saying earlier, and create this plan to get them started and keep them moving. And then I do like
Yeah.
one off, like 1 hour here and there. Somebody needs like a little vitamin K shot or something. And then I also love doing developmental edits. I don't do like the line editing and proofreading, but I love taking an early draft of a story and just looking at it overall and giving feedback to help
Yeah.
improve it, make it more, coherent or cohesive, I should say. Um, and so generally that's the way I work with people. And then I do offer online classes now and then. And I'm building a library of digital resources for beginning and intermediate writers. And then last thing, I have a membership group. It makes me very happy to support people in their writing lives, because we don't live in a culture that really values it and supports it.
For sure.
And so, yeah, I have a membership group where we have like online, silent writing circles twice a week. I do like a live Q&A, so I answer people's questions. Um, People who are members of the group, I've created an alchemy of writing course, and so they get that. They also get a weekly email with more writing support in it called the Alchemist Note. And so there are a variety of ways that I support people in writing, but I just, when I start feeling like I'm just going to focus on my own writing, I just can't help myself. Like I'm a born teacher, and so
Yeah.
I do that.
That what I really enjoy about what you're talking about in this regards is not just the fact that you like to help individuals with their writing, but recognizing that there's actually a lack of of communities around that in the masses. There are communities, such as these what we're talking about, but not in the masses, and especially given like in certain areas of where one lives at. Like for example, let's say if you were in New York, in the city of New York, there may be a lot more opportunities over there for other creatives, especially because that's kind of west where the mecca is, the hub for trap publish and for trap publishers. It's right in that area. But if you go somewhere to another, like let's say a smaller city, not where you live at, because it's not a small city, but like in some smaller cities or areas where there's not really that much of it around, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And so what I appreciate with what you're doing is even if there is a lot or there's not much, you're still deciding to do it because you have your own voice, you have your own vision, and you're also somebody who's truly kind and also approachable as well. Really easy to talk to. So it makes it even better that you are the one that is on top of that organization or of that membership group that you're running, and it's quite trustworthy as well. One another message, another thing I wanted to point out in what you were talking about that I really appreciate is the fact that you still, despite helping out others, you still want to write for you too,
Mhm.
and it could still be because it's really easy to get caught up in you know what? I'm just going to take some time away. I have a list of members who want to be a part of this movement, and it's really easy to forget about yourself. So, for those who are watching and you see Johnny and you see how she's moving and she's maneuvering through everything and she's still putting a focus on herself, that is important as well. Now, I know we spoke about parenthood beforehand, and but for those of your students or members, clients, however you phrase it, right? How many of them? Well, I won't say not that you need to give me a quantity, but like how many, like those who have families in comparison to those who don't have families that work with you. What's that dynamic like in helping them being able to achieve something, despite them knowing that they have those? I won't say distractions, but those added responsibilities.
Yeah, that is a tricky one, honestly. And I think a lot of the people who are in the membership group, one thing they like about it is that our writing circles are silent.
Hmm.
We don't speak at all. We just get online and write together. And so they have this sense of community without all the chatter. Um, and so with some of them, I don't really know that much about their lives. But I will say this, most of the people I'm working with right now, I think are either childless or they're older and their kids have grown like mine, or yeah, that's just the sense I get. And I will say this to people who do have young kids. I was driven. So I started Miranda's Garden when my youngest was 2. He is now 35. And I finished the novel during the pandemic. So I worked on it off and on for over 30 years. And I don't have that kind of time with the next one because this is the first in a series. And so I need to get on it, but it is a challenge. And I remember when my kids were younger, feeling I was either cheating my writing or them. And it was a huge tug of war inside me. And, um, it was always balancing this guilt and resentment kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
Someone asked me recently, like, how I managed that. And I said, I don't know. To be very honest, I don't know if I did. I mean,
Yeah.
I got writing done, but it felt very fractured.
Hmm.
And they grew up. And, um, and not to use them as an excuse because, when I was married, I fortunately had a partner who understood the importance because he was also a creative. And so I had, not that I needed permission, but he was very supportive of me going away for like weekends to the coast to write or something. And so for me anyway, the way my creative mind works, that's how I had to do it. I couldn't maintain a daily practice until they were all in school. But even then, it's like things come up and you're always interrupted. And so I think we can train our brains to write in big chunks of time and then really make it a priority. Um, because I do think when we have families, we were talking about this earlier, it's very easy to put ourselves second and then third and then last. And so I think, and in fact, in my Alchemy of Writing course, there's one whole module is devoted to this, stating the importance of writing to the people in your life, like making it an official declaration so they understand this is what I'm doing now, and finding the support and also finding the ways that it works for your specific brain. But that's how I did it. Big chunks of time away from home. Um,
Yes, I think. Oh, sorry.
that was it.
Oh, okay. No, thank you so much for sharing that. It's helpful to hear other people who have been there, who are also fully understanding of the challenge of having a family and also wanting to be a creative while also working. Some people are fortunate, and I know very few who are able to do this line of creative work, whether they are a full-time author or they are an entertainer, but being able to find the actual luxury in doing that professionally where they can make a living. Ultimately what it comes down to is being able to try to find a balance between of trying to do these things because it can just be really difficult. Most creatives work 9 to 5 or work some sort of job in corporate America, or they're blue collar. They work an additional job to fund their creativity. And it can be so tricky when you add in the element of parenthood. And if you're also married and you all, and it's a cohesive relationship, then it helps that your partner is understanding, or they also are similar in thought when it comes to an additional activity that they like to do that they want to turn into something of a business. Like I think yourself, Johnny, I mean, me and you, or you and I, other people who are in this space are also entrepreneurs. And so when you look at it from that standpoint of this is not just a hobby, it's also a business, but it's something that I enjoy, then it creates more of a drive to do these things and and to want to be better, and realizing how short life truly is, and what time are we wasting. We want to do things that keep us happy and add more joy into our life and make life worth living. And I think far too often, when we, especially for parents, and we throw a lot of ourselves into our children, which I think is a good thing, but I think it comes at a detriment of your own happiness at the end of it when they grow up and they graduate. I'm not at that point yet, but I've seen it on the opposite side, and knowing that, okay, I want to do things a little different because I don't want to lose myself. um, and I also, just for context, I worked in as a mental health paraprofessional and a substance abuse counselor within the Air Force, and many things that I learned in talking to people who came there as patients was that they were lost. A lot of them were lost either because they were getting out of the military and they had no identity outside of that, or their kids were growing up and they had no identity outside of that. And so I say all of that and saying that, just find what you love to do. If you can't, just start out with what you enjoy to do and build it from that point. Now, I'll ask you just a couple more questions, Johnny, before I let you go. So thank you for dealing with the with my
No.
children uh, coming in and photobombing us, but it's all love. So what are some strategies and ways that you maneuver through the internet, if that's one of the places that you do it with, on how to market your business or how to advertise your business, or just how to get recognized? Like, what do you do in that regard?
Yeah, well, this has been a big learning curve for me, I will say, because I'm very much a creative, and the business side of it all, I was very resistant at first. Um, I've learned a lot. I still have a lot to learn. In fact, I was talking to Caitlin just the other day and saying, like, I can learn how to cook and be given a recipe, but that doesn't make me a gourmet chef. And
Yeah.
it's the same with marketing. It's like, I can tell you what I know now about marketing, but there's an art to it that I'm still figuring out. So I am on, we can spread ourselves thin on social media these days. And so it's taken me a while to find my favorite platforms. And so I have three now that I focus on, and I'm on
Okay.
YouTube. I have a small but growing YouTube channel, and I just love getting on there and talking about writing in various ways. And then I'm on LinkedIn also, and I am new on Substack. So I love the Substack platform. And so those are the three main places. And then I will also say this, I have this free offering for people called 10 Ways to Banish Writer's Block. And it's just a handy little flip book. So those are the main ways that I market myself, and just, yeah, like I said, figuring it out every day, like how to
Yeah.
do it better. So,
Yeah, that's one thing I will say, that, and this is what differs from my wife and I, because my wife, she loves structure. I do too, but I also very much love unpredictability, because with unpredictability, it keeps you on your toes, and it forces you to not remain in a hole, or not to stagnate, or it also encourages you just keep on finding different ways of doing something. And that's no different in this regard. Social media is its own entity. And I love YouTube. I've been doing YouTube since 2007. And one thing I've learned about YouTube and its growth and what it looks like now versus what it looked like back then is the inclusion of shorts, kind of adapting to what TikTok kind of made become a thing. Granted, I know that TikTok wasn't the first to do short format videos, but it certainly popularized it, and what is added to its algorithms and to its platform. But when you look at platforms such as LinkedIn and Substack, YouTube, and how vastly different each one is, well, like, at least with Instagram and with Twitter, there's slight similarities to it. Same with like Blue Sky and Twitter, kind of similar. I mean, granted, Twitter and Instagram, or X and Instagram, is more like, one's gallery based, imagery based, and the other one's more like talking stories. But they kind of, in a sense, aligned, because you can do, I don't know, you can share a lot of stories and topics. Instagram, LinkedIn kind of reminds me of Facebook, except far more professional. More professionals I've seen in LinkedIn, and you are able to network. It almost acts as a ever growing resume for people. It's a perfect spot. I will say it is a perfect platform to expand upon your brand and meet other creatives within your profession to connect with. I've met most of my people through LinkedIn, in fact. Um, if not through LinkedIn, then I've met them through other people who I've met, but a lot of them tend to be connected via LinkedIn. YouTube, YouTube to me is going to always be, it's going to always be my favorite. And I say this because it's my first love and it's what I learned. And it's the only platform out of all of them, to include TikTok. And I've recently learned this, that it is search based. People go there with a specific need to go look for what they're looking for. It's not like doom scrolling, you're going through and you're kind of flicking through and just kind of randomly landing on things. So when people go to YouTube, they're really specific. So if you are able to build an audience there, whether it's a small one or a large one, once you have an audience there, you are sold. You are good. And Google with their YouTube will treat the host very kind and will keep people coming to it. So, congrats to you on your success with that. And, anything I can do to continue to help, I certainly will. I'll make sure I put the word out for you, and I'll put links in the description of where they can find your material and how they can connect with you through your social medias if you would like for them to connect with you on there. What are your thoughts on that?
I would love that. I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Oh,
that would be
yeah, of
great.
course. Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, last question I'll ask you before I let you go is, man, all of a sudden I have like five, but I'll just pick one of the questions. Let's see. Perfect. So, with what you're doing, do you feel at this current point in your life, do you feel a sense of I finally have it figured out after X amount of years. I finally have it figured out and I'm able to finally live my life and this is what I would like to do. Has that hit yet or are you still in that I'm searching phase?
I will say this. Yes and no. So the reason I say yes and no, I know exactly what I need to have peace in my soul and to take care of myself. But I don't have it yet. And so figuring out how to make that happen. And the reason I wrote a novel about a woman who lives in a cabin in the woods is because that's what I want to do. And I currently live in the city. And so, yeah, I think I have figured out what makes me tick and what I need. And now I'm trying to figure out, or I am figuring out how to make it become a reality because I am just not going to be content with leaving this realm and not having it be so.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm sure you'll get there. I only know one person and she lives out in a cabin in the woods somewhere in California, and she loves it. And it seems like a peaceful for those who love nature, who love to be around environments like that. It just seems like good to go. It doesn't have to be a mansion over in Beverly Hills or somewhere in Malibu. Something as simple as a cabin somewhere where nature's around and you can just wake up and enjoy it. And I mean, maybe, look at throw some boxing gloves on, be ready to box a bear or something. But, aside from the jokes, being able to just enjoy peace and solitude.
yeah.
Hey, thank you so much, Johnny, for coming on board. Thank you. Any closing remarks before I let you go?
I just want to say thanks again for having me. Like, it was such a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much for taking the time and having an interest. And I love talking about writing, so this has meant a lot to me.
Yeah, no, it's meant a great deal to me. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Caitlin, for connecting us. And thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in to today's episode. It's been a pleasure, Johnny, and I'm looking forward to continue to stay in touch with me. And then I'll do everything I can to continue to help. When you go down the road, when you have more things coming out, you're more than welcome to come back over here. Or if you need help with just a promotional ads or something like that, let me know. I'll record a video and I'll do what I can to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. Hey, you all take care, and I'll catch you next time.